Have you ever had to miss a crucial cricket match or maybe a friend's birthday party, all because you were stuck in bed with a fever? Man, it's the worst, isn't it? But have you ever just stopped and wondered why? Why do we get sick in the first place? Well, today we're going to go deep inside our own bodies to understand this incredible, non-stop battle that's happening right now just to keep us healthy. So let's get into it.
So here's our game plan. First up, we're going to figure out what being healthy actually means. Then we'll get into what a disease really is. After that, it's time to meet the villains of our story, these tiny invaders called pathogens. But don't you worry, because right after, we'll introduce the heroes, your body's amazing immune army. And finally, we'll lay out the master strategy for how we win this fight.
So let's kick things off with this big mystery. I'm sure you've seen this in your own classroom, right? There's always that one friend who catches every single cold that goes around. And then there's another person who seems almost invincible. They just never get sick. So what's their secret? Is it just pure luck? Well, stick around, because by the end of this, you'll know the real science behind that answer.
Okay, let's dive into part one. Before we can talk about what goes wrong, we first have to understand what right even looks like. So let's set our goal. What is true health anyway?
Most of us probably think that health just means, well, not being sick. But take a look at this official definition from the World Health Organization. The key words here are complete physical, mental, and social well-being. Now that is a total game changer. It means health isn't just about your body. It's about your mind, your thoughts, your feelings, and it's about your friends and your community. It's the whole shebang.
And this really makes that difference crystal clear. See, you can be disease-free. A doctor can run all the tests and say, yep, no virus, no bacteria, you're clear. But does that automatically mean you're healthy? Think about it like this. For a musician, being healthy means having the lung capacity to play the flute beautifully. For a dancer, it's about having the flexibility to perform. If they can't do their job well, are they really truly healthy, even if they don't have a cold? So the big idea here is that true health is about your ability to function at your best.
This diagram just sums it all up perfectly. Imagine health is like a three-legged stool. The first leg is physical fitness. That's the one we always think about. But the second leg is mental fitness. Handling exam stress, feeling good about yourself. And the third leg is social fitness, having good friends you can count on, feeling like you're part of a community. Now, if any one of those legs gets a bit wobbly, the whole stool gets unstable. So true health is all about keeping those three things in balance.
Okay, so if that balanced state is our goal, what's the thing that knocks us off balance? Well, that brings us right to part two, understanding disease. This is where the disruption happens. This is the conflict in our story.
So when a doctor tries to figure out what's wrong with you, they're basically a detective looking for clues. And those clues come in two main types. First, you've got symptoms. That's the stuff only you can feel, like a headache or feeling really tired and weak. It's your side of the story. But then there are signs. These are the hard evidence that anybody can see or measure, like a rash on your skin or a high temperature on a thermometer. The doctor's job is to put both of these clues together, what you're feeling and what they can see, to crack the case and give a diagnosis.
Now, the word disease is a huge umbrella term. It covers all sorts of problems. So to make sense of it all, we have to put them into categories. And one of the simplest ways we do that is just by looking at the clock and asking, how long is this thing going to stick around? And that question splits diseases into two big groups. On one side, you have acute diseases. Think of these like a sudden thunderstorm. They hit you fast and hard, like the common cold or the flu, and then after a few days or weeks, they're gone. But on the other side, you have chronic diseases. These are more like a slow, gradual change in the climate. They develop over a long time, and they stick around for months, years, or even a lifetime. Things like diabetes or asthma are in this category, and they're all about long-term management.
So sorting by time is one way to do it. But there's another, arguably more important way to classify them, by their cause. We have to ask the question, did this problem start from inside the body, or did something get in from the outside? And that question is the massive difference between what we call infectious and non-infectious diseases.
All right, time for part three. It's time to meet the villains of the story, the bad guys. Because for every single infectious disease, the story begins with an invasion by a microscopic trespasser. And the proper scientific name for these troublemakers is pathogens.
And we're not just talking about one kind of enemy here. Oh no. The world of pathogens is incredibly diverse. You've got the famous ones, like bacteria and viruses. But there are also fungi, these tiny single-celled creatures called protozoa, and even larger invaders like worms. And listen, each one of these has its own unique way of attacking, which means our body needs a unique defense for each of them.
Let's just zoom in on the two biggest players, bacteria and viruses. Think of bacteria as complete, independent life forms. They're like tiny, single-celled organisms that can live their own lives, eat their own food, and reproduce on their own. Now, viruses are something else entirely. They aren't even really alive by themselves. They're more like tiny biological pirates, just a piece of genetic code wrapped in a protein code. They can't do anything until they hijack one of our cells and use its machinery to make more copies of themselves, and this difference is absolutely critical.
Which brings us to this super important question that honestly a lot of adults get wrong. Why won't a doctor give you an antibiotic when you have a common cold? It's simple really. The common cold is caused by a virus. Antibiotics are designed to kill bacteria. See, an antibiotic might work by destroying the cell wall of a bacteria, making it fall apart. But a virus doesn't have a cell wall. It doesn't build anything, so the antibiotic has nothing to attack. Taking it for a cold is literally like trying to use your house key to start a car. It's totally useless, and even worse, it can actually cause harm by killing the good, helpful bacteria that live in your gut.
So, how do these microscopic invaders travel from one person to the next? Well, they've got a few main travel plans. They can travel through the air when someone coughs or sneezes. They can hide out in contaminated water. They can be passed through direct physical contact. And sometimes, they use a special delivery service.
And these delivery agents have a name. They're called vectors. The classic example is a mosquito. When a mosquito bites someone who has malaria, the mosquito doesn't get sick. It just acts like a tiny flying syringe. It picks up the parasite from one person and then injects it into the next person it bites. That mosquito is the vector. And in a country like India, this is a massive deal. We all know about diseases like malaria and dengue that are spread by mosquitoes, and that's exactly why public health measures like preventing stagnant water or using mosquito nets are so important.
Okay, we've met the villains, we know how they operate, now it's time to meet the heroes. Let's move to part 4 and get introduced to our body's personal 24/7 security detail, the incredible immune system.
Think of your body's defense system like a massive fortress. The first line of defense is the outer walls. That's your skin. It's a fantastic physical barrier. If the invaders can't even get in, the battle's over before it begins. But what if they breach the wall? That's when we activate Step 2, the general army. These are your white blood cells, patrolling everywhere, attacking anything that looks foreign. But what if the invasion is too big? Well, then it's time for Step 3. We call in the special forces. These are elite, highly specialized cells that launch a targeted attack. And this is the coolest part. They create a memory of the enemy, so if it ever comes back, they can destroy it instantly.
So let's meet a few of these key soldiers. First, you've got the macrophages. Their name literally means big eaters, and that's exactly what they do. They're like the bouncers at a club, patrolling your body and just gobbling up any suspicious invaders. Then you have the lymphocytes. These guys are the special ops team. They are the intelligence agents that identify the specific enemy, create the battle plan, and then produce highly specialized weapons called antibodies. Think of antibodies like heat-seeking missiles that lock onto one specific type of pathogen and mark it for destruction.
So, we have the invaders, we have the defenders. The battle lines are drawn, and that brings us to our final act, the strategy for victory. What can we do to help our immune army and make sure that our side wins the war?
When it comes to winning the war on disease, we have two main game plans. The first is treatment. This is what we do when we're already sick. It's about fighting the battle that's already raging inside you. We can do that by either reducing the symptoms, like taking a painkiller for a headache, or trying to kill the microbes directly with a drug like an antibiotic. But the second, and frankly much smarter strategy, is prevention. You know the saying, prevention is better than cure? This is all about avoiding the fight completely by doing things that stop the invaders from ever getting in, something as simple as just washing your hands.
And the ultimate weapon of prevention comes from one of the greatest stories in all of science, the invention of the vaccine. You have to hear this. More than 200 years ago, a doctor named Edward Jenner noticed something really peculiar. The milkmaids, who often got a harmless disease from cows called cowpox, almost never got the deadly human disease smallpox. And he had this brilliant idea. What if getting the mild disease was somehow training the body to fight off the deadly one? He tested his theory, and it worked. It was a massive success, and it became the world's very first vaccine. It's basically like giving your immune system special forces a training manual about the enemy before the real battle even starts.
This flowchart here kind of puts all those ideas together nicely. See, we can get immunity in a couple ways. Natural immunity is what happens without any medical help.
Either you're born with some basic defenses, or you get sick with something, your body fights it off, and then you have the memory. The other route is acquired immunity. This can be passive, like when a baby gets temporary protection from its mother's milk, or it can be active. And that active, acquired immunity, well, that is exactly what a vaccine gives you. It actively trains your own immune system to build that memory, giving you powerful, long-term protection.
And that brings us full circle. We now know that health isn't just about not having a fever. It's about physical, mental, and social balance. We know diseases are disruptions caused by invaders, and that we have an amazing immune army fighting for us 24/7. But here's the thing. That army needs a good general to lead it. And that general is you. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. Knowing everything you know now, what is one simple choice you're going to make today to help your body win the battle for a healthier tomorrow? Because the power to be healthy, it's quite literally in your hands.